In this video, I'm going to explain how men are actually increasing their carbohydrate intake, reducing cortisol levels, getting rid of the inflammation within the gut region, and actually eating more food and losing more body fat. And if you don't believe me by now, just go ahead and watch this video because I'm going to break it down for you step by step. This is a complete comprehensive metabolic study on carbohydrates and reducing gut and improving gut mobility. So these are some of the clients that have actually came to me who have been on pretty low carb diets and pretty inflamed in the gut region. And you can just even check some of them out. And every single one of these guys are eating more carbohydrates. Every single one of them are eating more carbs per day than on the photo on the left. And so in the video, I want to explain how this is very possible. First of all, going over cortisol influencing digestion and fat loss, really the low carb dieting lifestyle that's been pushed amongst men for the last 10 to 15 years, and how it's been causing cortisol and digestive related symptoms, the correlation between metabolic adaptation and cortisol. How do we fix this? And then getting into depth on how we fix this with an actual client case study with my client Bryant, who's 31 pounds down, eating 1,000 more calories a day, up 450 grams of carbohydrates. So if you don't believe me by now, watch this video all the way through. If you've been stuck on low carb diets, if you've been stuck on very low calories and you feel very inflamed in the gut region, you just can't get rid of that last little bit of belly fat, watch this video all the way through because I'm going to try to shine some light on some newfound science that is coming out in today's age on the keto diets in the past that are no longer working for men. So if you guys don't know me by now, my name's Adam Bono. I'm an online metabolic specialist and I specialize in metabolic priming, which is a process of metabolism manipulation and correlating correct carbohydrate intake and influencing digestion, influencing metabolism, influencing inflammation within the body to overall improve metabolism. And so I've worked with almost 400 plus men in the last 6 months alone in 7 different countries, getting them to a next level physiques, utilizing this approach of high level metabolism strategies. And this whole channel is just designed to help you, the viewers, out. So make sure to go ahead and watch this video all the way through because I'm going to break it down, show you the science, and show you how you can actually eat more food and, yes, lose more body fat. So this is my client, Bryant, right? Obviously, amazing transformation for being 31 pounds down, up 450 grams of carbohydrates, and he's not even halfway done. I wanted to pull this up because the transformation he's made in such a short amount of time is actually astounding. But let's get right into like the first topic I want to talk about is like how can cortisol influence digestion and fat loss? So cortisol is probably one of the most significant factors when it comes to digestion, when it comes to inflammation, when it comes to fat loss, is because high levels of cortisol will quite literally prohibit your body from losing body fat. Your body will quite literally hang on to every last little bit of belly fat if your cortisol levels are too high. And so the reason why I bring this up is that these low carb diets and ketogenic diets and very low calorie diets are actually influence a lot of cortisol on the body, putting the body in what's called like a metabolic purgatory because we don't have any mechanism of actually releasing that cortisol. And so some of the symptoms that we see coming into our clients from our clients coming into our program is like inflamed gut, terrible energy, brain fog, terrible digestion, and even like in symptoms of, reduced sexual desire, right? Which for men, that's not good, right? But anyways, getting into cortisol is a stress hormone because it can significantly impact digestion. When the body experiences stress, cortisol is released, which can disrupt the normal function of the digestive system, leading to issues like bloating, stomach cramps, and even more serious gastrointestinal disorders. So here's how cortisol does affect digestion. Cortisol can alter the speed and efficiency of food moving through the digestive tract, potentially slowing it down, causing bloating or constipation. And this is important to note too, because like in a lot of metabolic disorders is that like you get a lot slower digestive tract, lot slower of time to eat the food, to actually exert the food. And so like a metabolic slowdown, you start to slow down the digestion as well. Increased inflammation, stress-related cortisol release can contribute to inflammation in the digestive tract, which can lead to discomfort, potentially exacerbate conditions like IBS, RBD, altered gut microbiome, increased stomach acid, leaky gut, reduced blood flow. So like stress can redirect blood flow away from the digestive system towards other parts of the body, potentially impairing digestive function. So the important thing to note about cortisol is it is a very cellularly active metabolic process. And what I mean by that is that cortisol being very cellular active, the body has to take a lot of energy to go solve the problem of cortisol, because we've got to solve the bottlenecks in your body first. If you got a high level of cortisol problem, then we're no longer utilizing the fat mobilization and fat oxidation process to actually correctly, quote unquote, lose body fat, right? We want to allocate cellular activity to the correct places. And if you have high levels of cortisol, whether it's stress from work, whether it's stress from under eating, whether it's stress just on your actual body from a more physiological perspective, is that we need to solve that first, right? So cortisol can hinder fat loss by increasing fat storage. So you can actually be under eating on calories and still gaining fat because of a high level of cortisol. And so in a lot of cases, I hear guys online and guys who comment on a lot of these videos, and they're like, yeah, like, I've been in low carb or I've been very low calorie for an extended period of time, and it feels like I'm just spinning my wheels. Like no matter what I do, I can't not get rid of this last little bit of belly fat. Even if I raise my cardio, even if I lower my calories, I feel like I've just hit this wall. Well, that wall is cortisol, right? And so in essence, it can slow down your metabolism. So chronic stress and high level cortisol can lead to slower metabolism, make it harder to burn calories and burn weight. You have muscle breakdown, increased appetite, insulin resistance, which is important to note as well, is that insulin resistance is a huge factor when it does come to metabolic presence and metabolism overall, because chronic stress can impair insulin sensitivity, leading to high levels of blood sugar levels and increased fat storage. And so with like insulin sensitivity in general, I want you to think about, one, if we have like up and down levels of blood sugar regulation from stress, from maybe just inadequate amount of food per day, under eating, that's what we can lead to, insulin sensitivity, right? The body works best when you kind of lay everything kind of flat out, like through the week, right? You modulate everything, because what can be tracked can be improved. If like for insulin, when we talk about insulin sensitivity, if like one day your carbs are extremely, extremely high, and the next day they're extremely, extremely low, and now we're going like this, the body can get a little bit confused on the pathways that it should be prioritizing for energy. And so obviously cortisol leads to poor sleep, and then obviously poor sleep is probably one of the most beneficial factors. Sleep in general is one of the most beneficial factors when it comes to losing body fat, because sleep reduces cortisol levels. But how are low carb diets and calorie restricted diets causing these cortisol issues? So it comes down to metabolic adaptation, which is also called adaptive thermogenesis or diet fatigue. When we don't give our body enough of what it needs to support essential body functions, our body downregulates the metabolism. This is a body's survival mechanism to ensure we have energy to support essential body functions in food times of scarcity. And once you turn your body into a certain survival mode, the body will downregulate the burning of calories at rest to support your basal metabolic rate. The longer we eat less than what our body is designed to, the more our body will resist it. Our BMR decreases, thermic effect of food decreases, energy burn to exercise decreases, and major hormones that influence these adaptations include leptin, which is a satiety hormone when you feel like super hungry all the time. Ghrelin is a hunger hormone. Thyroid hormones like T3, T4, testosterone, obviously unfavorable in men. But like metabolic adaptation at a higher level is that when you start to eat less, the body starts to conserve energy. And so that's the reason why like a lot of guys who do low carb diets will lose 15, 20, 30 pounds, but they'll hit that wall because they've metabolically adapted. And I would say 95% of the men who come to me have done low carb in the past. They've made great progress, but they've gotten to that point where now they're inducing high levels of cortisol in their body, and they don't have a mechanism of actually releasing it and getting it off. And so that's why they kind of get stuck on those low carb, low calorie diets, because they've downregulated their metabolic process and they've downregulated a lot of the essential body functions that the body needs to actually survive, right? And that's where you get all these like symptoms of very low calorie diets, right? So getting deeper into metabolic adaptation, it's also adaptive thermogenesis, is a natural physiological response. The body reduces its resting metabolic rate, the number of calories burned at rest, in response to weight loss or calorie restriction. This adaptation helps the body conserve energy, making it harder to further lose weight, potentially leading to weight regain. So basically, we don't have a weight loss problem in today's society. People are actually really good at losing weight. People are terrible at keeping it off because they don't understand metabolic adaptation, right? When you downregulate the metabolism and then you eat a little bit more food and you gain all that back. That's why people get stuck on these very low caloric restricted diets with high levels of chronic cortisol, is because they've downregulated their metabolism. Now they eat anymore, but they don't know how to nurture their metabolism back to health. Then they gain a lot of weight very rapidly. And so that's what I teach, is how to metabolic restoration is restoring your metabolism and burning more energy at rest. And so reduced energy expenditure, increased hunger cravings, potential for weight regain. And there's an actual study done on this in the National Institute of Health. It says that like 30% of people who lose 10 plus pounds actually keep it off. And then the 2-year mark hits and that number drops to 15%. So if we look at that from a logical perspective, 85% of people are gaining weight back. We don't have a weight loss problem in today's society. America doesn't have a weight loss problem. They have a weight relapse problem and keeping it off problem. And so factors influencing metabolic adaptation, energy balance. Metabolic adaptation is the most pronounced during periods of negative energy balance when consuming fewer calories than expended. And this even gets even worse when you start to extend this over like a time horizon. And then larger weight losses tend to be associated with greater metabolic adaptation. So if you're somebody who's lost 100 pounds, 60, 70, 100 pounds, is that you downregulate your metabolism even further because now you don't weigh as much, right? So your body doesn't need as much to keep yourself alive. So you actually downregulate it even further. And then individual variability. So how do we fix this? The correlation between metabolic adaptation and cortisol. So understanding this is metabolic adaptation can significantly impact cortisol levels. Generally, calorie restriction and weight loss lead to an increase in cortisol, which can be both beneficial and detrimental depending on the context. While cortisol helps mobilize energy during times of restriction, chronically elevated levels of cortisol contribute to metabolic issues like insulin resistance and fat storage, right? And so like the very high calorie restrictive diets actually create fat storage and insulin resistance if you don't treat it properly. That's why most people who lose the weight actually gain more back than they lost in the first place. So caloric restriction and cortisol, increased cortisol. When the body experiences caloric restriction over a state of energy deficit, it often triggers release of cortisol, mobilization of energy, muscle breakdown, potential for metabolic dysfunction. This is important to note because this is what I teach. While cortisol initially effect is to maintain energy balance during caloric restriction, chronic levels can lead to insulin resistance, fat storage, and other metabolic problems, particularly in the context of weight loss or metabolic syndrome, right? Cortisol can also influence other hormones like leptin, thyroid hormones, and obviously we talked about that. So how do we fix this? Because this is what you guys came to know. You want to know how you fix this. You want to know how you can improve your metabolism, and I'm about to show you, right? It's called metabolic priming. It's what I specialize in. I've helped 400 plus people in the last 6 months utilize this approach. So the process of manipulating cellular metabolism to enhance its function and efficiency, particularly in the context of fat loss or improving metabolic health. It can involve strategies like optimizing meal frequency and timing, focusing on protein intake, engaging in regular resistance training to build and maintain muscle mass. In essence, about preparing the body's metabolism for a period of fat loss or increased activity by optimizing baseline function. So, optimizing metabolic function. Metabolic priming emphasizes building a strong metabolic foundation before embarking on a calorie deficit for fat loss. And we're going to show you with Bryant here how this does work in the context of what we did for that and kind of getting him back out of this very highly restrictive diet. It recognizes that healthy metabolism, often linked to muscle mass, is crucial for long-term success in maintaining healthy body composition. So yes, there is a very good correlation between muscle mass and metabolism. Keep that in mind, is that the more muscle tissue you have, the more metabolic your body is, the more food that you can eat. This approach prioritizes metabolic health over simply focusing on weight loss alone, aiming for sustainable results rather than quick fixes. Yeah, and so that's the reason why our platform that we use for our clients called Trainerize has over 400,000 different trainers and online programs on there. And we were fourth in 2024 out of all 400,000 people on the interface for most sustainable results. Keep that in mind. Out of 400,000 different people, we are ranked fourth out of the entire world. And so what we use with metabolic priming, it's unlike anything the industry's ever seen before, because when you understand metabolic health, you can have a lot, not only predictable progress, but much more sustainable progress. And what it comes down to is understanding glucose control. And I pulled this up in the last video, but I want to reiterate it one more time because it's important. Because the thing is that people try this on my page all the time, and they're like, oh, it didn't work. I gained a little bit of weight. I feel like crap. Well, it's because you have to understand glucose control. Controlling the glucose is important to note that how much matters in correlation to where your body's current state is at. So what I mean by that is that, like, if you're eating 2,000 calories right now, you've been eating 2,000 calories for 3 months, and you simply raise the carbohydrates to 3,000, yes, your body's going to have an adverse reaction. You've got to let the body transition back into a glucose metabolism state and utilize glucose properly, or it will have symptoms of pushback. So insulin resistance is caused by constant glucose spikes. Control the macronutrients, control the carbohydrates intake and healthy fats. So the whole caveat behind metabolic priming is that you have to understand how to control the macronutrients and control the carbohydrates where your current metabolism actually does lie. Super important to know, but it's important to note that that is important when it does come into the context of actually correlating your actual food intake to your metabolism. So much lower insulin spikes due to carb intake, much more versatile body health. So what we mean by this is that, like, if you add a bunch of carbohydrates very rapidly, yeah, you'll have an incredible insulin spike. But if you do it properly, maybe space it out during a 3 to 4 meal period, or even like in the context of like correlating the calories you're eating right now to correlating the calories that you're now eating with more carbohydrates in it. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in a second, but it's important to note, control the carbohydrates. Don't just eat carbohydrates because I told you to. Control the carbohydrates where you're at, okay? So carbohydrates can help reduce cortisol levels, and this is the reason why we use carbohydrate metabolism instead of fat adaptation. Carbohydrates can help reduce cortisol levels and improve metabolism by influencing insulin and other hormones involved in stress response and energy regulation. When paired with protein, carbohydrates can stimulate insulin release, which counters the effects of cortisol and can help regulate blood sugar levels. So we have guys who come to us with borderline diabetes, and we reduce a lot of their symptoms and a lot of their borderline diabetes with carbohydrate metabolism, because understanding that the cortisol the correlation between cortisol and carbohydrates is extremely important. We have a client named Michael. He came to us with a 12 A1C. We reduced it at this point. I think last week he had a 6.1, eating 1,000 more calories a day, eating more carbohydrates a day. Right? So yes, it's definitely possible to reduce your A1C with more carbohydrates. And I know it goes against everything you probably heard, but the results that on our page speak for themselves. This in turn can reduce stress response, improve sleep, right? So cortisol and insulin antagonists, carbohydrates and insulin impact on stress response. By regulating blood sugar and promoting insulin release, carbohydrates can help blunt the typical increase in cortisol and other hormones associated with prolonged exercise or stress. So metabolic benefits. Adequate carbohydrate intake associated with metabolics can improve thyroid hormone, support better sleep recovery, increase glycogen stores, which are crucial for physical performance, right? So getting into the metabolism, how it works and how we utilize this, is remember I told you that, like, when you go through metabolic adaptation, you downregulate the 60-70% of your metabolism that actually, supports essential body functions. Well, that's where we focus, right? We use carbohydrates to improve the 60-70% of your metabolism that burns the most at rest, right? And so how we do this properly is a couple of different contexts. Is utilizing carbohydrates in association to the hormone T3 in your body, which is basically a hormone in your body, and the active thyroid hormone that controls a lot of your BMR. And they've done studies on this, and I've pulled this up a couple times in a couple of my videos, but I want to reiterate because it's important to note, like, the downlying effects of how this is actually possible from a scientific aspect, that my clients are eating more food and losing more body fat. We conclude that dietary carbohydrate is an important regulative factor in T3 production in man. And then even right here, it says low T3 levels can lead to conditional U36 syndrome, and getting enough carbs can lower reverse TV. Not eating enough carbs will increase it, thus blocking important work of T3. So it's important to have carbohydrates in your diet for a healthy thyroid. But anyways, getting into, like, this is kind of where we focus. This is why our clients make such good progress, is because we use a scientific approach of understanding how your actual metabolism works to influence the largest part of your metabolism that burns the most calories at rest, as opposed to focusing on the exercise activity that only burns 5 to 10%. So, I mean, we quite literally focus on a part of your metabolism that burns 5 times as much calories without doing any cardio, right? And so if you don't believe me, like, well, just check around real quick. I'm going to run through this case study with Bryant because I want to show you exactly how it works. So this is what the context of metabolic priming really does lie. So when Bryant came to him, like, you can already see, highly inflamed. He loves HIIT training, and when you go into HIIT training and high athletic performance as well, you need those carbohydrates because that's what's going to be the biggest impacting factor when you're reducing a lot of those cortisol levels, but also improving overall performance, right? And so he came to us at 268, right? 268 pounds, right around 2,000 calories, right? So our whole goal is, in the concept of what we were trying to do here, is we're trying to revamp his BMR. We are trying to rejuvenate his BMR and get his BMR to actually rise again. So how do we do that correctly? So any cardio that he was doing, we'd have to cut it to zero. And like there's certain caveats behind this, like people who like to bike ride, people who do like mountain biking, people who do like jiu-jitsu. There's all certain caveats behind this. When it does come into this context, we have plans for those guys to actually work around that. But the easiest way to do is, like, if you're doing any extracurricular cardio, just drop the cardio to zero, stick to 10K steps a day, because that's going to influence non-energy activity thermogenesis. But anyways, we started him at 2,000 calories, and our goal was to get him as high as possible and try to get his BMR as high as possible. So, like, we cut the cardio, reduce all the cortisol in the body, and then slowly each week start to raise the carbohydrates up. So how did we get his starting macronutrients? It's fairly simple. He came to us eating 2,000 calories, okay? So I want you to get your pen out, and I want you to write this down. He was eating 2,000 calories a day. So we are going to start him right off at 2,000 calories a day. We're not going to give him any more or less. 2,000 calories a day is where his basal metabolic rate now lies. That's where his quote-unquote maintenance calories is. So what we needed to do is match him with the current calories that he's actually currently eating, okay? So we don't want to start him more than the calories that he's eating. We don't want to start him less than the calories he's eating. We're going to start him right at the amount of calories that he's eating, which was right around 2,000 to 2,200 when we did our data-driven adjustments on where his metabolism did lie. So it's like, a simple way to put this is like, if you've been eating 2,000 calories for the last 6 weeks, then start at 2,000 calories. And if you've been up and down, then just kind of correlate in what's your average caloric intake through the day. So if your average caloric intake is 2,400, start at 2,400. His average caloric intake through a month's period was 2,000 calories, okay? So we used that 2,000 calorie mark. What we did, we raised the protein intake to, build muscle, but also to satiate the ghrelin and leptin hormones. And then we give him a lower fat intake. So the process works best when you have a lower fat intake. Why? Is because when you have a lower fat intake, you push the body to use carbohydrates at a higher level. And so like where people go wrong with insulin resistance is they have a high fat and a high carb diet, right? And the body doesn't know what source to actually use from a metabolic perspective. It kind of gets into what they call, quote unquote, a metabolic gridlock. So we have to push the body to utilize more carbohydrates. And how do we do that correctly? We lower the fats a little bit, right? And so we are transitioning the body into what's called, quote unquote, a carbohydrate metabolism state. So we basically lower the fats, raise the protein. And the formulas that we use for this, I'll give it to you. I don't even care. It's 1 to 1.2 times your body weight in protein, and usually 0.3 to 0.4 times your body weight in fat. Fill the rest with carbohydrates to meet that 2,000 calorie mark. It's exactly what we do every single time. Certain caveats behind that, obviously, but this channel is designed to help you guys out, and I do leave 90% of what I keep in these videos out just because of my paid for clients. And so, but this will help you. Like, those are good ranges to hit, and just start right there. So each week as he checks in, you can see, right, 25 more grams of carbohydrates. And just look at the first few, 2 weeks, just 2 weeks right off the bat, from 224 to 310, eating 50 more grams of carbohydrates a day. Look how fast his side shot is starting to just de-bloat, right? It's because we were influencing digestion, right? We were influencing cortisol levels. And when we start to improve metabolic function, your digestive system starts to work better, starts to work quicker, because we're pushing the body to burn more. And the things that we get a lot from our clients is, like, guys will come to us who are like, oh, I'm not hungry, right? And it's probably you right now, because once you've metabolically adapted to a very low amount of calories, like, you're not very hungry, right? Your body is kind of at homeostasis with being fine to eat 2,000 calories. And so we have to push our clients sometimes to eat a little bit more carbs. But by week 2 or 3, usually their hunger starts to actually ramp up a little bit. And I'm not talking the insatiable hunger that's like super annoying. It's like the good hunger, right? That's like makes you feel like energized, makes you feel good. It's because we're pushing the body to burn more calories, and that's a metabolic response. We track that. It's a metabolic response. Like hunger in general is a good way to track your overall metabolism. If your hunger is very, very low, and you're in low calories, then you've probably downregulated the metabolism a little bit. If your hunger is really high, then your body's working and burning foods at a fast rate, right? So, and these are all things that we teach our clients on how to understand about their body, and so that they can understand when to change that type of stuff. Anyways, yeah, 25 more grams of carbohydrates. Just look at this, like each week as we check in. You can slow this down if you want, but each week as we check in, 30,000, right? Here's he at 3,100 calories right here. 3,100 calories. Keep that in context. 3,100 calories from 2,200 calories. And all we did was raise the carbohydrates each week based upon the actual progress he's making. What I mean by that, because a lot of guys will get this wrong, is we make adjustments based upon what your body tells us to do. What I mean by that is, when you check in, we use the data to make decisions. We don't change things that don't need to be changed. If, like, for instance, our clients check in and they're down in weight a little bit, and their body composition is looking good, then we're good to give them a little bit more carbohydrates. If they check in and their weight hasn't moved too much, their body composition hasn't moved too much, we wait another week to their body to transition. We utilize actual data, but we do this all for our clients. Like, it's very hands-off for them. They just follow what we tell them to do. But what I'm saying is that make decisions based upon what your body's telling you to do, not what your emotions are telling you to do. Extremely important, but like I said, we cover all that for our clients. So anyway, 6-2, we start the potential cut. All right, so keep in mind, we got them all the way up to 3,200 calories, right? But this is the crazy part. 3,200 calories, 244 pounds, right? So he's down 20 pounds, eating a shit ton more calories. But now what do? Now we can start like an actual cutting phase because we've reduced all that cortisol now, and we've improved metabolic function. We restored his metabolism. So what do we do from here? Is that we can start adding a little bit of cardio because we haven't been doing any, so now cardio has a newfound stimulus. So what we'll do is we'll add 20 minutes of cardio and lower the food a little bit. And the same thing goes, is that we will make decisions based on what his body's telling us to do. And so we started the cut. All we did was four times a week, 20 minutes, 10 incline, 3 speed, right? Next week, we actually gave him a slight food decrease. So we lowered 100 grams of carbs. So he's at 20, this was like yesterday, a week ago, but he's at 2,600, but I want you to see what happens with his weight now. So this is where he checked in yesterday. He checked in this yesterday on 8-4 with us, but look what his weight's at. He had a new all-time low weigh-in at 236, right? But he's still eating more food per day. We just changed it last week. He's at 2,600 calories, and he's down 32 pounds, right? Eating more food than he started, and now he's not starving. His metabolic function's intact, and we monitor all that. We monitor his metabolic function. We make sure that his BMR isn't down-regulating because eventually it will. But we know that, right? And so we can give them like structured refeeds. We can give them carbohydrate increases to kind of spike this BMR a little bit. But like that's what the process looks like when you actually understand the data-driven adjustments that need to be made to make predictable progress. And this is what you get right here. You get, 31 pounds down, eating a shit ton more calories. But look how much more his shoulders are now like pronounced, how much bigger. Like you could really, really tell it in his back and his love handles. We like completely got rid of his love handles. And then his front shot as well. This isn't the last time you guys on my channel will hear of Bryant. Like he's in for like a fridge hanger transformation. But I wanted to show because we had just started his cut, and once we started that cut, like he just like shot down within like just a few weeks. Is because we've positioned his body and we've prepared his body using metabolic priming to restore his metabolism, put himself in a better position for overall fat loss and sustainability. So anyways, I'm glad you guys got to see that, and I hope that was very, very helpful. If you guys like these type of videos, like, comment, and subscribe. If you are somebody who's been stuck on the low carb diets. Like I have been too, trust me. Like I was stuck on them for forever. At one point in my life, I was eating like 1,600 calories doing 2 hours of cardio. That's way well before I invested all of my time and my money and my resources into courses on endocrinology. But like I get it. Like I understand how frustrating it can be when you have a lack of clarity. You feel like you're spinning your wheels. You just feel like you're burnt out. Like I get it. If that's you and like the low carb is just like leaving you hanging, like this is a new approach that's hitting the industry in 2025 that we are like it's a proven concept that's more science backed than anything there's ever been before. And we're one of the most fast upcoming online fitness programs on the internet right now is because of this stuff what I'm showing you right here. And the reason I make these videos is to show you that it's actually possible, because people don't believe me, but we have over 40 client testimonials on our YouTube page right now that you can go to and that you can check out and you can confirm that they're all doing this. This is the new way people are doing it for sustainability reasons, and this is way better than highly restrictive diets, way better than feeling like crap with low energy, way better than feeling like gut inflammation, because I've been there. And the YouTube video will show you where I was at before this. So if that is you, there will be an application for the program down below, because like I said, if you guys think that I give you guys the sauce, imagine what I give my paid for clients. I leave 90% of what I teach on this channel for them out of respect for them. And so if you're somebody who wants the whole piece of the pie, yeah, go ahead, and the application will be down below. There'll be a little bit of video about who we are, what we do. But if you're somebody who just like needs a little bit of guidance, needs a little bit of direction, these videos will help you. But if you're somebody who just wants it all, say, screw it, I want it now, I want to get it done, I don't want to spend my time spinning my wheels trying different things, yeah, application will be linked below. If not, all good. Continue to watch my channel. I hope you make great progress. So I'll see you guys next time.